Awesome. So, hi everyone. As people still continue to come in, I'm just going to go ahead and get us started. My name is Amelia Quesada. I am so happy that you are here. I am a sophomore at Harvard studying government and sociology, and I am the director of workshops and speakers here at LEAD, and I'll just be moderating today's workshop. I also wanted to remind you that you can use live captions in English for this event by clicking the CC button at the bottom of the screen. So I wanted to welcome you all to LEAD's first ever interactive keynote workshop. I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by Chef Gaby, a true groundbreaker in cuisine and content creation. She is a professional chef with almost 20 years of industry experience and a lifetime of general knowledge about food and all of its many wonderful flavors. Born into a culinary family in Buenos Aires, Argentina, she learned the art of cooking while being exposed to the great dishes prepared by her relatives. And she was encouraged from a young age to explore new tastes and learn food preparation skills. So she grew up thinking of cooking as an art form rather than as a chore. Although Gabby holds a journalism degree, she learned about a culinary school that offered a work-study program after moving to the US. So a few months later, Gabby knew that she wanted to spend the rest of her life learning more about cooking and food. Gabby completed her culinary education at the Institute of Culinary Education in New York City with degrees in culinary management, culinary arts, and pastry arts. Over the years, her life in food has taken on many roles, including street vendor, culinary instructor, official food revolution ambassador, Bon Appetit test kitchen manager, cooking video host, and who knows what's next because there's a really exciting path ahead of her. Today, we will have a cooking and chatting session with Gabby as she leads us through making a flexible frittata and talks about her experiences, answering questions from attendees. I unfortunately cannot join in cooking with Gabby, but I highly encourage all of you to participate. It's going to be a lot of fun. So feel free to participate and send questions throughout the session in the chat. And so now I'm super excited to welcome Gabby in. Gabby, feel free to introduce yourself, the session, and we can get started. I'm here to help, so please make your session your own.
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm excited. There is nothing else to say. Thank you for having me here. I'm super excited. I can't see people, but hello, hello, hello. And I hope somebody decides to, cook along with me. And if you have any questions while we're cooking, this is gonna work. Amelia's gonna read it to me, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm ready. We're ready. I mean, are you still waiting for people to come in or are we ready to start?
We can get started. So you can definitely start. I am going to ask you the first question, which is, what are we making today?
All right. So when you approached me to do this, the idea was to like have a talk, and then I can talk. Everybody knows that I can talk your head off, but I basically wanted to like showcase something that like what I do, cooking. So when people ask me to like do a recipe that represents myself, I always struggle or like I doubt because I want to do something like super complicated or show off a little bit. But I decided to go for this frittata, and the name I came out while I was writing it, I call it flexible frittata because since we're talking about future and career and changes, I wanted to show that there are some things that you can cook and that not necessarily have to be always the same. You can adapt to what you have in the fridge or don't, or like you can make it vegetarian or you can make it vegan if you use an egg substitute. So I think this kind of like represents, a little bit of how I feel and a little bit of how I like to teach cooking. And I hope everybody can replicate it at home and come up with new flavors. So, and then you can let me know. So frittata is basically like an oven baked omelette or like a base of egg and some sort of meats or vegetables or cheeses that you add after. So if you have my recipe next to you, I made a little note that says you have to have certain amount of ingredients, exactly 2 cups. But that can be, a little bit, you can change it depending on the amount of people you have. So the one I'm gonna do today, I'm gonna make it very green. I have a bunch of different vegetables that I already cook. Some of them are steamed, some of them are saute. I have Brussels sprouts, and I have some kale, and I got some broccoli and green onions. And then I decided to get all fancy, and I got some ricotta cheese because who doesn't like ricotta? So first step first, eggs. You probably see I have 1,000,000 eggs in here, and the recipe calls for only 6. The reason why I have all these eggs here is because I went to buy eggs, and eggs come with different sizes, A, B, C. So I thought I was getting certain size, and when I opened the box, I got this surprise that I have a very big one and a very small one. So when I say 6 eggs, it can be 8, it can be 12 if you have a larger dish. That's why this is a very flexible frittata. So if you add more eggs, you're gonna add more filling. So I also mentioned that this dish can be prepared in the oven or in the stove top. So if you don't have an oven, I'm pretty sure a lot of people in college don't even have a stove. I don't know if you live, what's the situation for you living in college, but you can do this on the stove, on a regular pan. Make sure that you have a lid that, like fits well. I have a few samples. Hold on. Like this. And if you don't have a lid that fits your pan, you can always use what we call a sheet pan, one of these guys. Put it on top. The idea is to cover it. Or if you don't have any of those, you can always use the old aluminum foil and create a little lid yourself. Get all creative, put it on top. What I recommend and what I like to use is cast iron, not only because of the flavor you get from cast iron, it's very forgiving. I don't know, I like it, but not everybody has a cast iron. And I also mentioned that you can use a non-stick, but please, if you use a non-stick, make sure that you're using a non-stick that you can put in the oven. Otherwise, do it on the stove top. The difference between a frittata and a tortilla that, in Argentina, we call tortilla de papas, something similar to frittata. We flip it around. This one is just baked in there and you don't have to touch it anymore. So we'll start. Any questions so far? I don't know. I can't see the chat. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
You can go ahead. I think people would be asking questions about what the first step is, which is
what's the first question? How do you break an egg? I actually broke this one when I was showing it to you. But So when you crack an egg, and believe it or not, I went to culinary school. I learned it there because my grandma used to do it on the edge of the whatever bowl she was going to use. And the problem with doing that, you learn it the hard way when you have to crack a whole case of eggs for service, for breakfast, or for whatever. That's when you learn it the hard way. So the best way to crack an egg is not on the edge, it's on a flat surface. So that way the shell doesn't go in. So when you break it, you don't get shell on your egg. But if you get shell on your egg right there, you can always scoop it up with a piece of the shell. That's a little trick. That was extra. I save my shells and I compost. I'm very big on compost. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a smaller version today because the pan I have, I realize is not 10 inches, but 12. So I'm gonna make a smaller one also because it's just for myself. So I don't wanna make a big frittata, but this frittata actually you can, when it's cold, put it in the fridge and eat it the next day. I wanna do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do 6 of the little ones. This one doesn't wanna open. There you go. One more. So I wish you can, I don't know if you can see it, but the difference in size. So if your eggs are smaller, just keep adding egg. Or if you decide that you have a lot of greens or a lot of filling, just add one more egg. It's very forgiving. Nothing will happen as long as it's not overflowing your pan, and then you're gonna beat it. Oops. Melia, are you cooking? No.
So I'm a really big fan of cooking, but small apartment and moderation, I can't do it all. So, but I'm super happy to watch.
Okay.
And I think somebody is cooking. An attendee just asked if the eggs have to be cold or room temperature.
Oh, great question. It's amazing how I found that like eggs here are always kept cold, but for this recipe, because it's gonna take a while, it doesn't matter if you just pull them out of nothing will it won't change it. I have them out because I was getting prepared. Although for certain recipes like baking, it's always good to have your eggs at room temp. For this, it won't make any difference. But they're here for. I mean, I thought they look pretty. But it doesn't make any difference. I mean, if you wake up in the morning and you want to do it, go for it. Nothing will happen. Let me just put this on the side. I'm gonna put the eggs to the side. So my egg is ready. And in the recipe, it says that it calls for salt and pepper. And obviously, if you wanna get a little, more adventurous and do dry oregano, dry thyme, pepper flakes, any flavor you want. I'm just gonna keep it simple. I like to cook very simple. I rather add more flavor at the end. So in this case, because all my vegetables were cooked without any salt, I'm gonna go ahead and put a little bit of salt in here. I think I gave you a measurement, but you can, play around. Don't put too much. With salt, don't put too much. You can always add, but then you can take it out. So be careful. And don't dump it. Just use your hands. A little bit of pepper, black pepper. If you're not into pepper, don't put pepper. It's sky is the limit. And now I'm gonna add some of the kale. I'm using my hands, I wash them, but you can use tongs if you want. There you go. I think that will be enough. Green onions, they are raw, but they're gonna get cooked in the oven. So also like I mentioned in the recipe, you can use raw things or cooked things, or you have a little bit of extra greens, those that they can pre-wash in a box, throw them in there too. I mean, basically you can do this on Sundays. I like my big fridge cleanup and put everything that you find in there, put it inside. Anyway, now I'm gonna put a little bit of the broccoli.
And really quickly, how big was the kale cut? And how big do you suggest they cut their vegetables?
The way I cook kale, I remove it of the stems and I wash it. And with that same amount of water that's on the leaves, I put a big pot on the stove, put the leaves in there, cover it with a lid, and put it kind of high, watch it because it can burn quickly, so it will reduce. And then I, squeeze the amount of water, and I just chopped it, bite size. I mean, because kale sometimes can be a little hard, and not everybody's a big fan of like chewing large amounts of kale. I am, but not everybody's like that. I mean, I really do love kale. So chop it small. That will help in the cooking process. But don't forget that it's gonna be in the oven for 20 minutes. So and last but not least, Brussels sprouts that I also steam them, and then I cut them in slices. I don't know if you can see it. So you can actually, I think it's gonna look pretty. I wanna say some and add them on the top. So this is ready. That's that. So I know in the recipe says prepare your cast iron. So I'm gonna show you now because I didn't do it, but you can do it after if you forget. You see, that's how flexible this is. Okay, I'm gonna put this here for a second. And I'm gonna make the small one. This is my little tiny cast iron that I love. I mean, if you ever seen my Instagram, this guy has been pictured so many times. At one point, I wanted to call my whole Instagram, I thought it would be, this is about eggs. So what you wanna do, because this is not non-stick, this is well seasoned because I use it a lot. But what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna add a little bit of oil. You can use any type of oil you want, like canola, vegetable. I just have olive oil here. Olive oil doesn't have the same, you can't heat it up that much, but it's only 20 minutes in the oven, so it's fine. Be generous. You see it? How shiny? It's like when you put like cream on your face. I do this in my hands alone.
That's a good idea. We have a question from somebody cooking along, if they can use their cast iron, even though it has grill lines on it and is square, or if it would be better to use a circular nonstick pan that is oven safe.
I will go for the oven safe circular nonstick pan because those lines are gonna, when you serve, you're gonna waste. It's gonna get stuck in there and you are losing precious deliciousness. So yeah, no, if it has griddle lines, no. You also can put one of these in the oven. If you have one of these, you can put it in the oven. oil it a lot, like, because otherwise it will get stuck. Also, if it gets stuck, who cares? Just, and then you have to you get wait, don't they say con? In Dominican Republic, there you go.
Yes.
I remember. Oh my God, I forgot about that word. So I'm ready here. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour it. Try not to fill it up all the way to the top, because egg, when it cooks, it will expand. That's why the egg is so important in baking, because it helps with the expansion. Also, don't forget that we added a lot of air by beating it. So don't fill it up to the top. Otherwise, you have egg all over your oven. All right, any more? Oh, last but not least, I show you what I'm gonna do with this, with the ricotta. Any more questions?
Not so far.
Okay.
I think people are still cooking. I do have a question of my own. Do you have like a favorite like recipe for exactly what you put in yours? Does it change every time, or is there something that you always gravitate toward?
Well, kale definitely always. I always have kale because I love kale. My dog loves kale. Like we are a kale family. I would say this one: broccoli, kale, a lot of like leftover greens that I use for salad when they start getting a little wilted, like the mesclun salad. Like don't get rid of it. Just wash the parts that are kind of browning, put it in there, and then obviously anything that I have left over. I actually have roasted carrots. I could have put it in here, but mine are mostly green. Yeah, that would be my favorite. So then I have some ricotta. If you have like Parmesan cheese or something like that, you can shred it and mix it with the egg so it goes inside. If you have another cheese, feta cheese, you can like put pieces in here so then you'll see it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get some dollops of ricotta. I don't know if, can you see it? Let me see if I go this way, there. And it's just gonna, I'm not gonna dunk them all the way, but it's just try to put them on the top. There you go. 1, 2, 3. Oh, now I have to do 5 because uneven numbers look better on a plate, always. Never even numbers, for real. All right, that's it. This is ready to go in the oven. The oven has to be preheated at 375. Ideally, you need a rack in the middle, and you don't need to cover it unless you see that it's starting to like curdle so fast, and still have like a little bit like yellowish in the middle, like liquid. So you can like throw a lid inside for a few minutes and then take it out, but you don't have to actually cover it. The covering is if you don't have an oven and you're doing it on the stove. So I'm ready to go to the oven. Be right back. The oven is right here.
Sounds great. This really is a super fast recipe, so that's amazing.
Like basically you wake up in the morning, and let me clean up a little bit here. Like if you wake up in the morning, I'm gonna put a timer for 20 minutes. Luckily there is another human in this kitchen and it's putting the timer for me. Maybe wipe my hands, and I got a chair so I can sit and talk to you. Like basically you can like do this really quick, go take a shower, and by the time you get out of a shower, you have breakfast, lunch, and if you're lucky, you have dinner too, or breakfast for the next day, and you can eat it cold if you want, serve it with a salad, put it in a sandwich. It's the most flexible food ever.
Awesome. Oh, we have one more frittata related question. So somebody asked if they can use garlic in the frittata, or if you think it's a little bit too strong of a flavor to include.
I mean, if you like garlic, why not? Put whatever you want. Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be in the oven for 20 minutes, so it's gonna get a little bit of cooking. If you are into that, go for it. You can put garlic, onions, sauerkraut, whatever, pickles. I mean, what's the craziest thing I have put in a frittata? Oh, you know what I like to put? That I forgot about it. Jar artichokes. The artichokes that come marinated, shake them a little so you take the excess oil, but they have all that flavor, so you can throw them in there too. And then it's like every bite is a surprise because you get different bits of different things. So I like it a lot.
Great idea.
Yeah.
So I guess now we're going to transition a little more into the question segment of this. something to ease us into it is actually something an attendee just sent in right now that I think is a great idea. So a lot of the people at this conference are young students, either in high school, college, or graduate school. And they were asking if you have any favorite meal recommendations that are quick, inexpensive, and easy to make that are like this.
I do. I actually, like, if you follow me on Instagram, I feel like let me start again. I feel like it took me a long time in my life because I come from from a large, sort of large family. Um, my grandmothers and my mother, they never learned how to cook for two people. They used to cook for 15, although we weren't 15, but they always cook like it's gonna be the end of the world and we need food, you know, like Latina style. So they have tons of food. So for me to narrow that down to just cook for me, myself, well, you know, two people, sometimes the most three, and on a budget, I think I kind of develop all these recipes that you can turn the leftovers into a second recipe. So what I always tell people is like unless you like wake up one morning and you are like, today I want to eat, I don't know, specific meatloaf. So you go look for a recipe and then you buy the ingredients and then you cook it, you follow along. If you don't know much how to cook, great, have a recipe. But also, if you don't get all the ingredients, know that you can get creative and, you know, tweak it a little bit and make it your own. Always take notes. If you are on a budget, I will say sort of think ahead what you want to eat on the week, or depending on which day is your weekend. You know, some people the weekend is Wednesday. So just buy what you can and then plan ahead with what you have already. You know, check what you have in your pantry, check what you have in your freezer, because oftentimes we end up buying like doubles of what we already have. So that way you can, you know, stick to a budget. You don't have to eat the same thing every day, although I don't care. I love leftovers. I can literally eat the same thing every day and I don't mind it. But you can have the same sort of thing and then kind of like tweak it along with what you have. Will that answer the question?
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. And in terms of how you came to get all of this knowledge, I know we touched a little bit on this when I was introducing you in your bio, but you had a less straightforward approach to your career in the culinary world. You had a journalism degree first and then decided to go and to culinary school. How did you decide that transition and how was that
Um, so
tying the
yeah,
worlds together?
I came from Argentina when I was 25. When I came, I had a degree in journalism and a degree in education. And the goal when I came was to practice my English because I went to a bilingual school all my life in Argentina. Try to find a job in journalism, but in Spanish, because, you know, I thought my English wasn't super perfect, still isn't, but to this day. But so for me, you know, that was my goal. But on the other hand, I always cook. Growing up, I always was the one that was allowed in the kitchen. I mean, my grandmother allowed all of us, but I was kind of like, I don't know if she saw something in me or like she always allowed me to be a little bit more involved on different aspects of food. I always cook for my family. I always cook for my friends. When I was in college, in fact, at one point I didn't have a job. So that was the first time I started selling empanadas, but I was back in Buenos Aires. So food was always my thing. Even though when I moved here and I lived by myself, or my boyfriend at the time, my house was always like food central. When somebody was hungry, they always call me, or I will make a big pot of something and I will call on my friends and they all show up hungry. People know me. They know that when they come to my house, the first thing I ask is like, comiste? Like, have you eaten yet? You know, like, so I was like food central always. And always, you know, very curious, very amazed by the fact that New York City have all these amazing food places and you were able to try things. And then I used to like go to the library and research in books, and I bought some books or borrow books. So, you know, cooking was always there. The journalism thing didn't work. I ended up being a nanny and cleaning homes and you name it. One day I ended up working in a restaurant in the front of the house. If you're not familiar with the term front of the house means waiter, waitress, manager. That's what you don't see. Back of the house is in the kitchen. So I started working in a restaurant, and something got, developed on me. And I was just like, I like to cook, I like to cook. And I started doing more complicated recipes or book recipes or things like that. Until I find out that the culinary school I went, this is back in the day in 2002, 2003, they used to offer a work study program. So I basically joined without really knowing that I was going to end up being a chef. But you were able to work for them for 1,300 hours. And then you had a free of payment, like a tuition free program. So I liked it so much that I ended up working for the school. I ended up being a culinary instructor assistant, and I work in purchasing, and I learned everything that you need to learn for purchasing. And I worked so much in there that because I was also an employee, I was able to not pay, with my work for all the other programs. So I ended up staying at ICE, an Institute of Culinary Education, for almost 10 years, for like a long period. I mean, I did other things in between. And that was when I realized that was it. There was no going back. The first time I had to go and trail and work in a restaurant, I loved it. It was hard, obviously. But that was it. There was like, I decided right then and there that cooking was the thing for me.
Amazing. I know a lot of people in college do struggle between choosing different things. So it's always nice to hear that it works out when you just follow what you like.
And I was older, just so you know, I was like 30, 30, 31. I mean, so it was a big career change, like it was a long time after I finished college.
Well, so how has being Latina, and especially since you grew up in Argentina, how has that influenced how you approach your career?
With cooking, yes, it's interesting because when I mean, if anybody here ever had the opportunity to work in a big city in a restaurant, basically the back of the house, maybe 95% of the people speak Spanish. So sometimes they're like a whole family related. They are all from the same town. And so that was a plus for me, having like that connection right away. Because when you start new in a kitchen, you are the new person. So especially being a woman, like you are expected to work at the same level, at the same pace as a male chef. It took me a while to lift 50 pounds of potatoes. I did it a bunch of times. I wouldn't do it now, but I have to do it. I mean, there's always someone nice enough to help you, but like it's kind of like maybe like a rite of passage, kind of like, oh well, you want to be here, okay, so you gotta do this, like so. Not in a bad way, but I guess maybe because I was able to communicate in Spanish, sometimes I will be like, ay, por favor, like kind of use that, like think like I can be your mom or your sister. Can you help me with these 50 pounds of potatoes? And, there is always kind people to help me and that were able to help me. So I feel like I had a pros and cons also in the culinary. Sometimes, I encounter people that because you are from South America, if people are not familiar in which part of which country or what region you are, they sort of assume that the whole vast culinary, it's very extent and very vast, the amount of culinary, different types of cuisines we have in South America, because we have heritage from Europe, heritage from, like Japan, and it depends on what ocean you are, it can be completely different. So to assume that because you are Latina, you know all of it right from the very beginning, so that sometimes they were like, oh, you don't know how to cook, I don't know, something from, something that I never made. Now, after many years, I took it up on myself to learn it, or to go to the basics, or to go to like ask the, like if I want to learn how to make pupusas, I will go and ask somebody who had been making them all her life, instead of going into a book first. You know what I mean? So I think it was like a pro and cons being Latina, but more pros than anything else.
Good to hear it was mostly pros. I mean, I'm happy to hear it was mostly pros.
Yeah.
Um, and so this isn't an easy field. It's really competitive and you have to really want it to get it. So did you ever receive any advice or practice any self-affirmations that helped grow your confidence in your field?
A lot. I mean, I still do. But I do have like, I mean, there are quotes, so many quotes that come to my mind. I feel like when I decided that I want that this was it and I wanted to do it. I mean, you doubt yourself sometimes, or you are like, what am I doing? 12 hours standing up, my whole body aches. I'm standing next to a stove. I cut myself. I burn myself. You know, like, am I crazy? And then you remember why you started doing it. So you know, like just keep going. And I always try to be super humble about everything because I know where I start. So um, I like to like help the people that are starting too because I was there at one, you know, at one point in my life. Um, Things that resonate with me, and now I'm sitting down. I will never do this. I'm sitting down talking to you, but I will never be sitting down in the kitchen. And like we had a chef, one of my first chefs. He used to say things like, "If you have time to lean, you have time to clean." So you know that mentality starts growing on you, and you're always like what can I do better? You always feel like there is one more step that couldn't have been better. So I'm always like challenging myself to do it better, and always positive, always with a smile. And at the end of the day, it's cooking. It's no brain surgery. I gotta go check the frittata. So gonna stand up and turn around, and I'm ready for more questions.
Okay, awesome. Well, something that
Let me half the way on the 20 minutes, always check. I know it's not the oven, but if you're doing it on the stove, you have to stay in the kitchen. Don't go watch TV. Stay right there because things can happen. There is fire involved and oil. So when it's in the oven, you have a little more flexibility. But look at it, and if you see that it's getting higher on one side or more burn on one side, always rotate the pan because that means your oven, it's not even. And I always tell people that one thing that you have to know, like almost as much as you know yourself, is your oven. Always know your oven because ovens are not all created equal. So I'll be right back. You can ask the question. I can hear you.
So something that is in the Q&A session is, do you incorporate music in your cooking? And do you think that the music that somebody is listening to affects their food at all?
Definitely music. I mean, I always joke that I have music in my head. I have a music in my head, but yeah, I love cooking with music. Oh, sorry, I almost like, woo, you almost lost me. I always cook with music. I love it. Um, Not all chefs like that. I have working kitchens that is like complete silence. Like you can hear the person like 3 feet away from you or even closer breathing. And then you hear pop, 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 pots and pans and one order at a time. I have worked in both. I have worked in very loud music kitchen and complete silent kitchen. I like
Wow.
something in between.
Awesome. And in all of the kitchens and all of the places where you've ended up working, from selling the empanadas that you started making at first to the most difficult cooking environment that you've faced so far, what have you found most rewarding about the work that you do? And then on the flip side, what have you found most challenging?
Oh boy. In between the empanadas and before the empanadas, there was a lot of restaurants, a lot of places. Um, by the way, I just finished writing a book that is coming out in like close to November, but like um, and I actually recently I started talking about it. When you work in a restaurant, you cook something called family meal. That means you cook for the cooks. And I remember the first time I had to do it because when you cook a recipe in a restaurant, it's like a fire drill, ta 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 ta, 1, 2, 3, and you know the end result because you do it every day. But when you have to cook a meal for others, and they are your coworkers, your family for a minute when you cook together and when you eat together. Um, that's a big challenge. And then it's when like you realize you belong. There is certain aspects of working in a kitchen, so many hours in such a like sort of sometimes, heated environment that you create codes and you create like a communication system with people that no matter how many years after you don't work with these people anymore, you still have that. You still have that little bit of like, we work together here, we burn together here, we cut ourselves together here. So, and I don't know, my best friends are all from the culinary field, like when I work or when I study. I still have friends for 17, 18 years. We started culinary together, and that's something that I appreciate a lot. On the other hand, on some other environments you work, um, you live and learn. You put your head up and you put a smile. You go inside the walk-in and you start crying, and then you come out and you're happy again. And yeah, it happens. It's not the easiest field, but I think it's part of this career. But I mean, I have a really, if I have to put it in a scale, I have more good experiences than bad experiences. So let's lead with that.
That's great. And speaking of,
Like Green Frittata is, it's almost ready because I made it a little smaller. I don't want to burn it, so I might take it out. The other thing that I want to mention is like when you take it out, don't cut into it right away, because there is something in cooking called carryover cooking. That is the heat that is concentrated in there. Same with chicken and meat. You probably read it. The juices have to redistribute when you have meat. In this case, you don't want to cut it and break it. So go ahead.
so this question, actually, I just switched questions last minute because this just came in as you were saying that, and I think it's a great transition. So for any starter cooks out there, do you have any other hidden tips, maybe less common tips, whatever you want, for improving and starting to be a better cook?
Um, okay, mine needs to be, you see, because it's still jiggly in the middle. And I do not need a thermometer. I just use it to dig inside and check how wet it is. You can use anything. Tips. Um, okay, let me think. One big tip that I give everyone and anyone who has worked with me: before you start cooking, make sure your sink is empty. And before you start cooking, make sure you have all the ingredients. Don't start cooking. If you're following a recipe, read the recipe all the way till the end. And then, so you don't make a trifle with like something inside, like, I don't know if you guys watch Friends, but there is a famous trifle with like meat in the middle. Yeah. So read the recipe, the whole recipe. Make sure you have all the ingredients. If you don't, look for substitutes. I'm sure the recipe can give you substitutes, or create your own. Have a space. Make sure you have your sink empty. Know how long the recipe takes, because if you're going to make a stew and you're going to invite someone over for dinner, the stew is going to take at least 2 hours. Like, I used to tell my younger students, because I used to teach high schoolers, and they will be like, no, I don't know how to cook. I don't want to cook. And I was like, if you know how to read and you can read, you can cook. So, and pay attention, right? You're going to be using a knife and you're going to be around hot stuff. So, I find it really relaxing. I know some people don't like to cook for themselves, but I think it's very important as uh, at a young age, to start like taking care of yourself. And I think cooking for yourself is a way of taking care of yourself and nourishing yourself. And it's another skill you have, so I feel like, why not? It's a win-win.
Definitely. Well, so you were talking about an upcoming project earlier,
Yes.
and I know that you recently launched your own website. I was wondering if you would share with us what it's been like to amplify your own voice and create your own brand at this stage.
Um, Hard. Okay, so I think I'm very blessed of having had the opportunity to work at Bon Appetit, and like literally from when I started working there, from having, I don't know, 5,000, 7,000 followers, to one day wake up, I have 100,000 and then have 200,000. And that happened kind of like in a period of like a year and a half. So I think that's a big push to start your own thing. But also, like right now, I took like a kind of like a leave and a time for myself, because I realized I was putting too much pressure on trying to have like a perfect website, a perfect YouTube channel. And, like I call it the one woman show. I mean, luckily I was able to hire an assistant. I have people like helping me right now, but it's not always the case. So keep in mind the goal, but like don't get desperate to get there, because you're gonna get sick and you're gonna burn down and you're gonna want to say, I'm not doing this anymore because it happened to me. Just do, baby steps, a little bit every day, and keeping in mind your goal. And if you can't do it, don't beat up yourself. Just it wasn't today, it could be next week. But keep that plan. I like to make. I have like boards that I like to think about what I wanna do next. Uh, be aware of what's going on, check what other people are doing, don't enclose yourself. Like I like to follow some people and I really admire in this world, so I became friends with them. Like reach out to people. No, don't feel scared of reach out to like big people, because most of the time I'm pretty sure they will able to like give you a little pointer here or there, or advice, or like like guidance, if you want to call it.
Yeah. And on a similar note, if somebody were to wake up tomorrow and decide to start preparing for culinary school, what advice would you give them?
I am pro culinary school, but I also understand that it comes with a price that is not precisely inexpensive. But there are like plenty of programs where you can do like a community college culinary school, so it's gonna be a little less expensive. Also, make sure that this is really what you want. You can like probably see if you can, I don't know, decide that you want to cook the meals for the whole family the whole week, and see how you can like that. When they start saying, I don't need this, I don't need that, I want that. So that's what will happen if you are in the line in a restaurant. People want, they need rare or they want a medium. So first you gotta make sure that you have it in you. So I will try to have a little taste of it, maybe trail. I mean, I know with COVID it's kind of impossible, but if you can trail at a restaurant, or if you can like go work in a pantry, in a food pantry, or a soup kitchen, and go chop some onions, because after you chop a whole case of onions, then you'll tell me if you want to go to culinary school. But I feel like you need to like have a little taste, and then when you already decided, reach out to the schools. A lot of the schools have like programs of ways on how to pay it, or and then go for it. Yeah, why not?
Awesome, thank you. Um, and speaking
Welcome.
of deciding to cut an entire case of onions, do you have any recipes or tasks that are your least favorite part about cooking?
Well, when I did my externship for my culinary school, it was at an oyster bar. So I actually have to shock. You know what shocking oysters is? You open the oyster with a special knife. So I mean, you learn it. You do it in school a couple of times. I don't know, 10 oysters, 12, the most. We used to do like fire drills in school, and we used to like see who did it faster. But then I go and I decided to do my externship at a place like that. So here I was in the kitchen, shucking oysters and then opening lobsters, and I was doubting myself, and I was like, what was I thinking? But like, I mean, I do it, but there are some things that are not hard but tedious. Like you have to, like, it's a lot of repetitive things. So it's kind of like your zen moment. Just think about it the good way, how it's gonna look when it's done. But you have to do it, otherwise you don't have the food. But I will say oysters or cleaning fish, like you don't want to do it at home, but like when you have to, you have to, and you have to do it. That's why you go to culinary school and you learn.
Well, on the other side of it, do you have anything that's like particularly your favorite thing to cook or your favorite routine when it comes to cooking?
My favorite.
Your favorite thing to cook or your favorite routine. So the opposite of what you just said.
Um, I'm big on having breakfast. I don't function if I don't have breakfast. So lately I rediscovered oatmeal, because for years I used to say that I did not like oatmeal. And my doctor recently told me I need to have oatmeal because my cholesterol was a little high. I hope my doctor is not watching this. So it's like a zen thing, like doing the, cutting my fruit, or, making the oatmeal. I like to prepare my smoothie also, always the same way. So those are my, sort of my favorite things. I like a lot of oven baked things. I use this small oven I have here a lot. I like to get like different ingredients and cook them all together in a sheet pan. I'm big on throwing a bunch of different vegetables, and then at the end you can add some chickpeas and cheese, and you have, like I said, dinner and lunch for the next day. Large batch things, scaling it to a one person size, one person household. Will that answer the question?
I think that does. Yeah, thank you.
All right,
but
so
that looks amazing.
Yeah, you guys can see it. Let me see. I don't want to burn myself. There you go. So let it rest a little bit. And look, it's really loose on the side. You can see, let me get a spatula. There, really loose, because I put all that oil. Oh, I can actually put it on a plate. Came out perfect. Let's see if I can flip it. Yeah, it's very loose. Maybe I'll do the flip, or maybe we got it here. Don't put your cast iron in the fridge, please. You can eat it from here if you don't want to dirty a plate, but don't put this on the fridge. Put it in a little container when you're done.
What happens when you put your cast iron in the fridge?
I don't know. I just feel like if it's glass, you are chances of breaking your glass. Oh. Also, don't put hot things in the fridge because it lowers the temperature of your fridge. And trust me, I've been dealing with this fridge for a while, and it's been breaking up and doing weird little things. So let me go get a plate so I can plate it and show you how it looks.
Oh, sounds great.
It's coming. There you go. Thank you. I can hear more questions.
Awesome. So as it's been coming out, we've been getting a few more questions about it. Somebody asked if you would pair this dish with any particular side dishes, especially if it's for sharing.
Great question. I am going to pair it with a salad. I always like to serve this with salads a lot, so I got a little bit of greens, and I'm gonna put it on the plate and show you. Also, if you have leftovers like I do, don't get rid of these. You use it for the next frittata, or you can actually add them to your salad because they are cooked. So I got a big plate. I don't know if I want to cut a piece or I want to show you. Yeah, I'm gonna cut a wedge and show you how it looks like. Is anybody cooking along here? I wanna know what's going on. I wish I could see it.
So if you guys want to, you can definitely send in questions. We actually have about 20 minutes left, 15, 20 minutes left of this. So get your final questions in. But we are also able to see your chat if you aim your chat at panelists, and we would love to hear about how that is going. And also you can tag us. You can tag us at Harvard Lead. And Gabby, if you would like, I can also drop your Instagram in the chat.
Instagram and YouTube channel, guys.
Honestly, check out her videos if you haven't already. They're amazing. I just put the Harvard Lead Instagram and Gabby's Instagram in there. It's the same handle for YouTube as well. You can totally check that out, and we would love to see what they look like.
Am I able to see it here or no?
No, so since this is a webinar, we can only see the panelists, but so I really, oh, that looks amazing.
I know, it smells really good, and I'm hungry.
Perfect timing.
I'm making food and I'm hungry. So I'm gonna put it on a plate, and I got like some of these greens, like I was saying. Like if the greens are getting a little wilted, you can always like put them in there. Don't get rid of your mesclun or whatever. And then like tomatoes. I got, I'm gonna add something. You're not gonna see me for 5 seconds. Hold on, I'll be right back. One.
That's totally okay.
5, I can do. Sorry, this wasn't planned. I like to do some sauerkraut. I'm really big on sauerkraut. So I'm gonna get a fork. I'm gonna put a little bit of the good olive oil on my salad. There you go. If you buy good olive oil, use it. Don't keep it in the bottle, because after you open it, in a few months it will be bad. And then I have finishing salt. There you go. And then I'm gonna get what I did with the fork up here. And I'm gonna get a little bit of a sauerkraut. I love sauerkraut. I'm gonna put it on the side here. There you go. There. Let's see. Can you see it? Right there.
Really great.
Yum.
I can't wait to see what everyone else's looks like. Somebody also did just ask, what are your thoughts on adding chimichurri to the frittata?
Hell yeah. Yes. Oh my God, do I have it? I think I do. Hold on. Oh, well, you can put it inside or you can put it on top. You can put sauce on top. Oh, I can read. Look delicious. I'll be posting mine. Oh, I can read now. Yay. Okay. No, I don't think I have it. But you can put sauce. You can put, I mentioned one of the feelings is like, if you have salsa or pico de gallo left over and it's kind of looking like, you don't want to eat it anymore, throw it in there. Avocado, if you're into that. I never use egg, the liquid egg substitute that vegan people use, but I'm pretty sure you can use that here too. I don't know, the sky's the limit.
That's great to know. Flexible frittata for you.
It is a flexible frittata, yeah.
Awesome. So we also just got another question. Do you have any food staples or kitchen staples that you think everybody starting to cook should have in their kitchen?
Yes, I do. First and foremost, salt. Don't be cheap on salt. You need at least a big thing of kosher salt for cooking. And if you want to get fancy, get a finishing salt. It doesn't have to be that pink one. Basic spices that you like. Don't start buying spices because one recipe has this weird name spice that you never heard. Start with the basics that you know, like salt, pepper. For me, will be cumin, oregano. Buy in little amounts. Make sure that you have a couple of types of oil, a couple of vinegars. Then I always have things that I always have in my house. I'm looking at my pantry right now. I always have 1 or 2 types of rice, noodles, pasta. Pasta is a big thing. Pasta, you can feed a lot of people. It can save you, dry pasta, I'm saying. Jars and canned things, why not? Nothing wrong with it. I recently posted something with sardines, and somebody was like, ew, sardines on pasta? Well, you don't have to eat it. But people put tuna, so I always have tuna, sardines. I always have anchovies. If you're not into that, like, find things that you like. Beans are a great way of filling up, like a meal. And then I always know what's in my freezer. if it's hard for you to know what's in your freezer, if you have a freezer, make a list outside the freezer, and know the rotation you have, or like make a big batch of something and keep it in there. Will that answer the question? Yeah.
That's great.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm gonna come up with a list and write it. Good idea. Taking note of that.
Awesome. And then, so another quick thing is kind of related to something that we heard about earlier. A lot of the people watching are college students, and a lot of dorms aren't equipped with full kitchens. They have to deal with just a microwave and a mini fridge. Do you have any suggestions for how they can still keep their meals interesting without having access to a full kitchen?
Yes. Rely on things like these. Like I always have some other flavor, some sauce, fresh stuff. I don't know how often you can buy, also because of COVID, the whole way of living have changed. Um, in a microwave, you can cook a lot of things. If you can upgrade a little and you can have like a little better oven instead of a microwave, because nowadays they're like small ovens that act like an oven, not necessarily being a microwave, or a hot plate. And some dorms are allowed to have a hot plate, right? Like a mini stove, electrical
Yeah,
stove,
it depends on the school.
depending on the school, right? Yeah, that's interesting enough, because I went to college in Argentina. For me, it was so hard to understand how, when it's the most important time of your life that you have to study, so you need to nourish your brain, and you eat so bad. It's like, so it's a reality, because you guys have no money and no time probably, or not knowing what to do. So another thing is, like, when you visit your family, bring a lot of frozen soup and keep it in there. Soups are amazing. I love to make a lot of soups with leftovers, boil everything, and then put it in a blender, and you have soup for this. Chilies, things that can be eaten in different meals and dress up with different accessories, like kimchi, like sauerkraut, like different sauces, different toppings, dry little things that you can put on top so they don't taste always the same. Yogurt is a good
That's
help.
great.
Good yogurt.
I'm gonna take that advice to heart because I know my meals get a little boring when I'm in school.
Right. So,
Um,
shush it up. Always, like, and if instead of salt, you can always put a little bit of olive oil on top, or splurge in a good vinegar, like in a good red wine vinegar or apple cider vinegar goes a long way. It's also good when you have an upset stomach, so you can drink it with a little bit of water. So, like, start with a new flavor every other week when you go shopping for food. And then, try it. Like, a lot of people like nutritional yeast. So you can put nutritional yeast on different things, and that gives you another flavor.
Fantastic, thank you. Somebody else is curious about what your comfort food is and where you draw inspiration from. Those are two questions. They
Yes.
asked both. Feel free to answer one or both.
I go for the inspiration first. By looking at what others are doing, by going back to the drawing board and my beginnings. I always look through my grandma's recipes and my mom's recipes a lot. I have a lot of handwritten recipes. I talk a lot with my brother and my one of my cousins, boy cousin in Argentina. They both are great cooks, and sometimes we reminisce things that my grandmother used to cook. And she's not alive anymore, so we kind of talk and, like, oh, remember that dish, and you go back to those flavors. I always, when I talk to new students, I explain, especially with little children when they don't want to try new foods. It's there is something in the culinary world that we call the flavor profile. So the flavor profile, it's like, imagine that you have like a file cabinet in your head of flavors. So, like, if I said chocolate, unless you're allergic and you never tried it in your life, most of you will know what chocolate is, right? And then if I said cheese, you know what cheese tastes like, depending on the cheese. And if I said pair in your head cheese and chocolate, someone might be like, ew, and some other will be like, okay, I can see something going there. So that's how I get inspiration. Remembering flavors, going back into old recipes, looking at what others are doing. All of a sudden, something comes across. I don't know if it's Instagram that knows what I'm thinking, but I'm just thinking about milanesas con papas fritas, and boof, a picture comes out, and I'm like, oh, I want to do this, but I want to do it healthier, or I want to do it easier, or I want to do it instead of with beef, I want to make it with vegetables. So like, so that's where I get inspiration. And the first part of the question was?
First part of the question was what your favorite comfort food is.
Uh, this, actually, I do this a lot, these frittatas. Um, a lot of like my mom's recipes. There is a fish that I call my mom's fish that it changes every time, but it's sort of the same. It's fish on a bed of potatoes and peppers and onions in the oven. That's comfort food for me. Pasta on Sundays, I'm very big on pasta. Like a big bowl of noodles with like spaghetti with the meat sauce. That's comfort for me. Anything I ate growing up in Argentina, mostly savory.
Great. That brings me to my next question. Part of the reason why we invited you to come to lead is because you've played a really big role in bringing Latinx flavors into like mainstream food culture, especially along people who follow you on social media. I was wondering what experiences you've drawn from being a underrepresented person in the field that you're in social media and in cooking.
What I gain, there is a desperate need for that, and people want it, including people that are no Latinos, like people that are from, people that have traveled abroad and have been to Latin America, and they're like, oh, make this, make that, and they I guess they feel more comfortable doing my recipe because they know I study and they know I work here and there, so it's it's nice. I recently did something with American States Kitchen, and they were going to write about empanadas. So they reached out to me because they were like, "You're the queen of the empanadas," and I'm like, "Oh, like I feel like special." So yeah, I mean, it's hard, but we're getting there, little by little. We're conquering.
Love that. That's great. And another thing is this past year, 2020, we're over it. It has ended, but it was really difficult for a lot of
2020,
people.
what? What's that?
We don't know. But it was really difficult for a lot of people, and everyone had to transition basically overnight to living their life as much online and at home as possible. How has this affected how you've approached your career, especially as you're launching your own brand during this time?
It was pretty positive for me. It gave me a lot of freedom. The moment I decided to leave them, and that's the reason why I kind of left being test kitchen manager, because I wanted to like focus on this and solely on this. And I mean, what's not to like? You work at home, I'm cooking all day, my dog is here, my dog loves it. I think it was great for me. It gave me like a lot of more like flexibility, and like I'm my own boss. So like I mean, I do have deadlines, but it, it also teaches you how to create a routine in this. I mean, all these like, oh, I'm home, I can be in pajamas all day. No, you still have to wake up and have breakfast and shower and walk the dog and at least put a clean shirt and pretend that you care, like, but like you have to force yourself. I mean, I think it was great for me. To be honest, I know not everybody can say the same. Unfortunately, there are like a lot of losses, material losses, and like a lot of like people lost relatives and family members, and we are transitioning right now in the country. It's like it's very crazy time, if you want to call it something. But again, if I put the scale positive and negative, positive is winning for me. I always try to see the positive. Yes.
Thank you for that. We are, again, really happy to hear that it's been positive. And that also brings me to one of my last questions. We do only have a few more minutes left, so any final questions, keep sending them to me and I'll keep bringing them up. So as we were preparing for this, I remember we were talking a little bit about your work as a community organizer. And I just wanted to know if you wanted to share a little bit about what that kind of experience means to you, how you've carried it throughout your life, even after that period ended.
Right. Yes. Great. Well, I live in Jersey City. Most people know that. And for like a long time, 23, 24 years. And I stopped doing it this year, but in the past, for 4 years, I was, they call it community people. So I basically not only went to meetings for my neighborhood, I kind of help organize, like things for the elderly. I used to teach there is a couple of different places where senior citizens go every day, but not now during COVID. I think they just started it, and they get like free classes. So I used to like teach cooking classes for them. At one point back, a few years back, I used to be part of this program that I help people that have recently been diagnosed with diabetes, and all of them were like they only spoke Spanish. So basically, me being bilingual, I was able to help them, and I will like I'm gonna grab the olive oil. I will go with them to the supermarket and help them read labels and teach them, like so. Although I'm not necessarily have like that title or that job anymore, I am pretty involved in my community. I mean that's what I love Jersey City, the fact that I know a lot of people, and like, and I think the whole 2020 COVID brought that up a lot more, and I'm very appreciative of that. How people help each other. So I mean I think it's super important. I know sometimes we lack the time to go and do some community work, but once you do it once or twice, at least once or twice, um, I mean, it makes you so happy to be able to like give back and help people. So I recommend it, even if you have like 30 minutes. I recently someone reached out to me, and since I'm assuming a lot of you are probably bilingual, a friend of mine is teaching ESL, English as a second language, and she needed more bodies because she wasn't able to do this one-on-one, and it was for free. So basically, doing that kind of thing, giving back to your community, giving back to whoever or whatever organization you believe in, I think is it's super important. It's everybody should do it.
That's really wonderful. I'm really glad to hear you say that. Um, I have one last question. It's kind of a mix of a few questions that have come in.
And
So
people can reach out to me later on Instagram or send you questions, and I will gladly answer them. No worries.
yes, and Gabby's contact information is in the pamphlet that we gave all of the attendees. So if you want to look for her YouTube and her Instagram, it should be there for you to find. So now that we've made this frittata and everyone has made their own unique recipe, kind of a twofold question again, feel free to address it in either direction. What do you recommend that they try to explore next and try to cook next? And then on the other side of that question, if it's not the same answer, what's a recipe that you have made that you are the proudest of making?
Woo! Okay. What's the proudest? I don't really know, top of my head. I'm really proud of this right now. I'm seriously. It came out amazing. As a cook, you always doubt until people sit down. You're always gonna feel like, and I'm sure a lot of people here can relate, or you can ask your mom. You always feel like you don't have enough food, or like I think it comes with being Latino. Like, oh my God, we need more food. We need more food to feed everybody. But I don't know, everything that I eat and somebody can enjoy it, I feel proud of that. Maybe I shouldn't, but I like to call it that way. And then the other half, what's next? Um, get out of your comfort zone, look for a recipe that you never thought, or maybe call your mom and ask your mom for that recipe that she never wants to tell you, and you want to try it to impress her. It depends on dietary restrictions. If you're vegan or vegetarian, obviously it's going to be different, but don't be afraid, and make the mistake, and then write it down, and the next time you'll know where you made a mistake.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you.
No, thank
Well,
you.
so this is all of the time that we have, Gabby. If you want to give any closing remarks, I will give you a second to do that. But first, like most attendees here, first I just want to address this. Like most attendees here, I can't wait to practice this and perfect this recipe because it looks amazing. I'm very jealous of everyone who could make it. I'm probably going to make it for breakfast tomorrow. Who knows? But because we are so excited to have you here and so grateful for all of the work that you have done, we are thrilled to present you with the Latina Empowerment and Development Conference Award for 2021, Latina Trailblazer, for your groundbreaking work in the culinary field. So everybody, please join me in thanking and congratulating Gabby. You can do so in the chat in the Q&A. We can't see you, but we know that you're there with us.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh my God, you guys are gonna make me cry. I'm a big crier. Oh my God, I didn't know. I didn't know this. Wow. Thank you. Yay.
Absolutely. And we really wish that we were in person with you so that we could hand it right to you, but we will work out a way to get it to you.
You know, on Monday, it's going to be 5 years that my mom died. So this morning I was thinking, what would my mom would have been doing if I was at Harvard, like in real person talking? She would have been behind the scenes, controlling everything, checking everything up. So this one is for my mom. And then what I have to say, I don't know, step out of your zone. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Reach out to the big person. You never know, either the big person or the assistant, somebody will, you know, like if you want to do it, just go for it and have something in mind. Remember, you have time to lean, you have time to clean. And nothing. Thank you so much for having me. I have a lot of fun and I can't wait to have this that is looking at me from here.
Thank you so much for coming, Gabby, and we can't wait to keep up with the amazing work you're doing. I can't stress this enough. Everybody, please go and check out her work. It's amazing. I've used her recipes tons of times. They're great.
So for my newsletter, I'm gonna put this recipe on the newsletter, and probably we have like a little video or something when you guys are done with this. So yeah.
Sounds great. Well, that's all the time that we have today, but I'm going to stop the recording now. It will be accessible later on, and thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.